if women are going out of their way to make this movement happen and to showcase that they wanted to be in the working field, because women didn't start working until, I don't want to be wrong, like the 1930s, 40s, whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't start working. When they're seeking out a mission, when they're advocating to work and you should have more women in the working field, was their objective to do it for themselves, or was their objective to do it to help the man in the house so he doesn't have to be the breadwinner? Hey, everybody, and welcome to the I'm Just Here to Listen podcast. I'm your host, Jameen Delmas, and today we got guest Yata Kane, who's coming in talking to us about what it means to be a traditional woman, Black woman in America, and also maybe talk a little bit about some of the feminist movements that's happening and just kind of get her take on what that's looking like. Thank you guys for joining the show, and we'll see you guys on the episode.
I'm just here to listen. Podcast bringing the best in music, sports, theater, and live on television. Listen. So intentional with the message, imagery, representation. Don't need a second guessing. Listen. No talking, level surface, reverse it. It's encrypted on purpose. Listen. Jameen and the team so grateful. Each week we deliver to the faithful. I'm just here to listen.
All right, so well, again, welcome to the show. Appreciate you taking the time to jump on. I want to start off the discussion with, in your opinion, like there's this ideal of traditional women. Like, what's a traditional woman to you?
I think a traditional woman is just a woman who follows the historical values of what it means to be a woman. In terms of the conventional aspects, I'm not even bringing anything per se biblical into it, but historically, if we look at the traditional roles that women have had, it's always been a woman who has been responsible for the home, who has been, in a sense, the backbone of the home, the creator of the home. And she really just keeps everyone afloat. So, in a nutshell,
there'll be a lot of people that will argue
absolutely.
you right now.
Absolutely.
Well, I believe that there's just this thing where, women talk about 50-50. And if 50-50 comes into play, then those roles are removed from the woman.
The thing about relationships and marriage, to me, I have learned you don't really get involved in what people decide to do in their relationship. Now, I don't agree with 50-50 because to me, that's a roommate. I don't want a roommate. I got to service and cook and, those things. If that's what we're doing, but that's just my personal thing. So.
Wait, back up. You're saying you don't believe in 50-50 because you have to do 50%, he has to do 50%, and you have to clean the house and everything else. So you wouldn't agree that
I just think
you
that
should
that's
still have
more
to do
of a
that?
roommate agreement for me personally. I prefer more traditional standards. When we talk about 50-50, are we talking about I bring my half of the mortgage and he brings his half? We split the utility bill.
Mm-hmm. So 50-50 is taking the bills and going straight down the middle with the bills.
I personally don't agree with that. I feel like
why don't you agree with 50-50?
In a sense, I feel like for me, first of all, I have very traditional values. So, and again, let me preface this by saying, one, I'm not a counselor. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do in their home, but coming from more of a traditional background and having traditional beliefs, I just believe that men and women, we have certain roles, and because of the change in those roles, it's affected how the family runs. And we can see that now, how things are. We talk about, first of all, people aren't being married as long as they used to. My parents were married, I think before they passed away, it was probably over 45 years. And my grandparents were married until death. My great-great-grandparents were married until death. So I just don't think we see that a lot. And so there was a certain there were certain traditional values that they held, and I think that's one of the things that helped mesh the Black family together, mesh the family together, and it kind of helped people know what their roles are. Now I feel like we're changing that. So much has changed. I just don't think that we can have the same level of expectations for people if we do change those types of things.
Okay. So my
Mhm.
so my kickback, right? So in other words, what does paying bills have to do with being a traditional man or a
Nothing
traditional
really.
woman?
I feel like it's more about taking care of the home, being the lead. It's about leadership.
So when we when I think traditional woman, I don't think about paying just the bills. Bills is bills. That's a part of two people's responsibility. Being a traditional woman or a traditional man, meaning going back to what it means to be a man or a woman, take away the bills. Like w- people are like, well, men used to take care of the bills for the women back then. That's because women weren't allowed to work. But just because you're allowed to work doesn't mean the traditional value within a woman should change, or even the traditional value
Oh,
within a man
absolutely.
should
I believe
change.
that. But I just feel like the original question was about 50-50. And that's not the same as I make more money than you. I feel like a man can still be in leadership in his home and make less money than his wife. But to I feel like we'll run into a lot of issues if we're coming in saying, hey, I'm gonna do 50% over here and I'm gonna do 50% over here. Because if that's the only thing that you're gonna divide, are we dividing anything else or just bills? So just the way that society is these days, and I feel like it just plays into where we are. We used to be more of a,
So if you're 50-50, then so what does the 50-50 mean so does it mean for you that, I mean, when we're talking 50-50, we're talking 50% of the responsibility of your family and
I get
household, right? So
uh,
so naturally, right? Women usually
mhm,
take care of the
right,
household by traditions. They are the ones who
right,
make the house a home. They make it homey, right?
right.
That's part of tradition. Rather you're spending 50-50 or not, that's still making the house a home. Just like okay,
Mhm.
we have half the bills, right? Men and women, they go 50-50. The biggest thing is regardless of the way, the bills have to be paid. And because your people are comparing what was then, and people are getting to a point where they're saying, well, if he got 50-50, I don't
Mhm.
shouldn't blah 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 blah. Well, 50-50, or back then, one, women weren't allowed to work. Two, the cost of living was a lot less. So nowadays it
Right,
requires two incomes. Why would the woman not want to go 50-50 on bills, especially when the cost of living has exceeded exponentially and is continuing to rise? That should not dictate or take out the traditionalist in a woman or man. Like, she should still, rather she's spending
right,
50-50, make the house a home. She should still be taking care of the home. She should still be cleaning the home, cooking the home, etc. Cooking for the home, etc. Washing the clothes, keeping the home up kept internally. The man should still be responsible for the external home, making sure the yard is cut, making sure the roof is blown off, making sure the repairs are good, making sure the condensers on the AC is well, making sure the
let
leaves
me
are raked up, making sure the cars are
let me
washed, making sure
interject
the
something,
driveway is
and I
pressure
don't want
washed.
your audience to eat me up on this. I am
Yeah.
not, first of all, trying to tell people what to do, but I just believe that you're going to run into problems. First of all, there's nothing wrong with sharing, but I just wonder why can't, instead of we go 50-50, why can't we say this is what we have and this is what we have to do for the month? This is what we have to take care of versus 50-50. To me, it really gives off a individualistic mindset. I'm bringing my 50-50 to the house and you bringing your 50-50 versus, look, this is the goal. This is what we need to do. And it does not matter what I'm bringing. and what you're bringing, as long as the goal is achieved. So I think that if we do that and then say, I want you to share the responsibilities financially 50-50, but then I still want you to have other traditional tasks in the home and share those, only do those 100%, excuse me. I think you're going to run into problems, especially um, in this society, in this day and age. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what people do. I mean, but at the end of the day, the truth is the truth. I mean, it has to, one, I agree. One, there's the conversation that had to be had, but you're saying your biggest thing is saying communication. But I think the biggest thing, that's the key thing is communication, understanding the roles, right? But the question, not even the question, but my statement to that is 50-50. Like, the
Oh,
conversation have to be had about the bills, because at the end of the day, there is a plethora of bills, right? Like, well, not plethora. So, like, in a household, you have an overall totality of what everything's going to cost. Okay, looking at all our bills, we are at about $4,000 a month in every bill. That's car payments, credit card, mortgage, lights, internet, cell phone, everything. That's
mhm.
taking everything in totality. In order for us to effectively tackle this equally together, we would take that 4,000 and divide that 4,000 by 2 between you and I. So when we both are paid, that's 2,000 down the road, 2,000, meaning when you get a paycheck, you should expect $2,000 to come out of your paycheck for the month. Expect that
But
to
why does
cover
it
the
have to be?
bills.
No, I don't. I don't,
Would you agree
because
with that?
if you make less than me or I make less than you, the value of that $2,000 is different. So why can't we just say collectively we have $5,000 worth of bills this month, and let's look at our goals for the month. How can we look at this from a more as a family unit and not as an individualistic side, because to me, if I'm bringing my money, my 50%, and you're bringing your 50%, we're it's just not feeling like a community. It's not feeling like a family unit, and that's just how.
So I think that I could see how that could really be a big argument, though. I could see how basing it on the merit of income would determine how much portion of the bill you should pay. That could cause so much conflict. Here's why. Because you're saying we're going to base it on the merit of what each individual brings. One person can say, hey, I'm going to stay as low as possible so I don't have to pay as much bills, which puts more
Mhm.
strain on the other person, right? And so at the end of the day, there could be this tit for tat kind of thing that's occurring, which would also open up opportunities for arguments and or possibly ending relationships. Regardless of the fact, if you're going 50-50 despite your income level, one, going 50-50 despite the income level would mean that it would motivate someone who may not be making as much to, hey, I'm not making as much, meaning I don't have enough money to play with. Maybe I should find another work form, or try to find a way to get promoted, or whatever the case is, because it's easy to stay stagnant. Like, hey, we're going to base this on our bills or base this on our income, on who pays what. That's going to open up so much room for that's going to open up a whole can of room. But if you know for a fact, whether you're working at McDonald's or you're working at a CFO, you need to come up with your $2,000 regardless of the money that you're making. Because at the end of the day, we know despite that, you're going to have to bring that home regardless. And hopefully that would motivate you to say, hey, I'm going to go out and get more. Because regardless of the way, if I'm working at Walmart and I'm making $2,500 a month, and I know for a fact I got to give up 2,000 of that to pay my bills, I only got 500. But my spouse, she works as a CFO and she's making 130,000 a year, and she's only got to give up $2,000 a month out of that 120,000, whatever. Okay, hey, we're living two different lives, but at the end of the day, when you're married, it's still marital money. The bills have to be paid. It doesn't even matter what you're talking about. The bills have to be paid. And this would give the person the opportunity to say, hey, maybe I need to step
To
up.
me,
Maybe
that
I
just
need to do
sounds more
this.
like a business partner or a roommate. I don't feel while you're talking, I'm thinking, so you're gonna ask your wife for 50%? of the mortgage.
For sure. For sure, hands down. Ask 50%, hands down. You have to
Remind
go
me
half,
not to hook
in
you up
my
with any of
opinion.
my
Yeah,
friends.
for sure.
I'm just kidding.
Remind me not to be hooked up with any of them. Because at the end of the day, like from a man's perspective, like
Mhm.
regardless of the way, bills are bills. Like, like if you so, and the way I look at this is okay. So you say it should depend on income. So if we're looking at, we can agree
No, no, no,
that
no. That's
we
not what
both
I
agree
said.
that when we're looking at bills, wait, no, hold on. What I'm saying, we both agree that when
Mhm.
we're talking 50-50, we're talking 50% of the
That's what
totality
you're
of the
talking
bill,
about. What
right?
I said
That's what the discussion is about. 50%, right? What, right? We're both talking about that. You just disagree that the woman should
well,
pay
no, what I'm
50%,
saying,
or the other half should
I'm not
pay
saying that that
50%,
can't work.
right?
And what I said originally was that you have to decide for what works in your household. But based on society
Mm-hmm.
today, I believe that you're going to have some issues if you are trying to have a traditional family and you expect your spouse to pay to split things down the middle, but then still handle other traditional roles. That's what I'm saying.
Right. But we agreed earlier that like income and bills does not dictate whether a person is traditional
From
or
a
not.
man's standpoint, and of course I can't speak to this better than you can, but I just don't see a man who is traditional being okay with not striving to fully take care of his family.
So you're saying that traditional, in a sense, mean that the man has to financially be able to fully
I'm not
take care
saying
of his
it
family.
I'm not saying it has to be that way, but I cannot see a man striving not to do that. Is what I'm saying.
Now here's where I believe. I believe that a man, regardless of the way, should have the capability of still being able to take care of his family, even in the event that the wife or the
Mhm.
significant other loses her job. He should still have the ability, but that does still not take away the responsibility of both people in the
I agree
home
with that.
taking care of the household. He should still he should still have the ability, like if she lose her job tomorrow, he should have the ability to do it. But because you are making X amount of dollars, you're making 100,000,
Mhm.
I'm making 100,000. Why does it make sense that the man takes care of the majority of the bills if our incomes are closely matched? That doesn't
It doesn't
make
make
sense
sense to me.
because you right. Well, most men would agree with this. Why would a man have to pay 50% of the bills, or not 50%, or the majority, or an 80-90% of the bills, when you and the wife, what would she be doing with the remainder of the money?
So you worried about your wife's paycheck?
No, I'm just saying, what else would you be
So I
doing
don't
with
think
the
it's a
remainder of
thing
the
where
money?
a woman is sitting back and holding her money and, coming out on top, or her husband is struggling. I feel like,
That's what it
well,
sounds
hear
like.
me out. So a lot of my beliefs are based in biblical principles. So regardless, I believe that there is a certain standard, there's a certain um, setup of the family unit. And regardless of income, I feel like the man is the leader in the role, has the role of protector in the family. And
What does that have to do with the bills, though? Because he
right,
could still lead going 50-50. He could still protect his family going 50-50. He could still do his traditional roles going 50-50. Bills, like we agreed earlier, bills
correct,
don't dictate
correct.
traditionalism.
However,
It doesn't. So how does that affect him traditionally when you're talking about how money is spent in the home? That doesn't affect how traditional a person is, because we
mhm,
agree that the cost of
it
living has
has.
drastically changed from the 30s to the 2020s
Even the last 10
drastically.
years, to be honest.
So really, and
Mm.
it's continuing to rise. So but if it wasn't a problem, so my question is, when the woman movement started happening and women and women were, fighting for trying
Right.
to get into the working field, was their objective to get into the working field so that they could still have their husband take care of 80 to 100% of the bills, or was it to be a partner and help pay those bills, or were they doing it
I
for their
think,
own selfish
well,
reasons?
first of all, the feminist movement, you can really break it down into maybe three different segments. In the beginning, we know that the feminist movement was really a white woman's movement, and it went until maybe the 60s where we begin to see um, people wanted more rights when it comes, equal rights when it comes to the workforce, things of that nature. And we see Black,
But why do they want equal rights? Did they want equal rights to remove traditionalism so that they could be more independent, or did they want equal rights so that they can help the man in
that's a
the
good
house?
question. Honestly, I can't say, but what I can talk about is the effects of that. So I feel like
Well, before you go talk about the effects, if you had to take an educated guess on that, because if women are going out of their way to make this movement happen and to showcase that they wanted to be in the working field, because what women didn't start working until, I don't want to be wrong, like what, the 1930s, 40s, whatever the case is,
Mhm.
they didn't start working. When they're seeking out a mission, when they're advocating to work and you should have more women in the working field, was their objective to do it for themselves, or was their objective to do it to help the man in the house so he doesn't
I,
have
I
to be the breadwinner
I think
of
women
like
came
all of
to
the
the
bills?
understanding that we are more than just women who run the house, and that we are capable of so much more. I think that that was one of the things, and perhaps it could have been when men went over to war, and a lot of women had to take on jobs that men were doing, and then when they came back,
So it was to do it for themselves then. Then you
yeah,
would agree that it was to do it for
more than likely,
themselves.
yes. However,
So it wasn't even in the man wasn't even in the thought process of why women wanted to work. They weren't doing it so that they could say, "Hey, I want to help my husband out because I know the cost of living is getting a lot. I want to do this." They're doing it
mm,
so that they could show their independence
mhm.
of without a man. How is that? And then now that you got that, now that you're able to show that you're
I don't
independent
agree with
without a
that
man,
statement. I
how
don't
does
think it's
that
because what we saw happening, women, I think it was more about self development. I am more than just this. I can be more than just one thing, because when we look at statistics, white women, their marriage statistics aren't being affected like Blacks were. So apparently they were a part of their feminist movement, but they were going back to their marriages and their traditional roles. So on the other hand, what we saw was something completely different when it came to African Americans. So I think that, you know, it's kind of like a checks and balances here. Individualism, I'm more than who I am, but yet I still understand my role, because if I do not, then the family unit is going to suffer. And I think that that's one of the biggest issues. Yeah.
S- So at the end of the day, the objective of the woman and the woman movement is selfish, regardless of the way, because they're doing it for self. They're not doing it to agree, or they're not doing it to support and be a partnership to the husband. They're doing it for their own selfish desires, to prove to themselves that they can do without this and do without that. How
So,
is that even traditional? One, how does
mhm.
working in the work field, how does making your own money, how does being independent, how does that dictate rather what a woman should be
I
in
think that
totality?
when you talk about choosing a mate, you are going to want to choose someone that's well rounded. And so if I am my best self, then I'm going to be better in every relationship that I have. And I feel like women, we understood that, hey, and because there's something that women, we sometimes do, women, we have so much power, and sometimes we're able to just kind of sit back and see what's going on and how we can improve a thing, but we have to improve ourselves first. And so I feel like women understood that in order to improve even the family unit, I need to be better. And I'm capable of so much more. So I don't feel like feminism had some negative results, but it was certainly good for development of self.
And here's what I'm hearing, right? Men make money
Mm-hmm.
to provide for their families. That's why we do it. We go out, we provide for our families, and and to make sure there is a roof over our head. Women make money to prove to themselves
Oh, that's
that they can
true.
make money on their own. Not necessarily, not necessarily to go half and half with your partner or
Mhm.
help your partner with bills. Because as you're saying it, regardless, when you really think about the totality of what's happening
Mhm.
here, women that don't believe in 50-50, you're not making money to help a
No,
partner
you don't.
out with the bills. You're making money to prove to yourself
So
that
are
you
you
can be
connect
independent. Because if it was the case of helping a man out with the bills, 50-50
so
wouldn't
are
even be an
you
argument.
connecting your argument here to feminism and the reasons
Well,
behind the movement?
it can be, it don't even have to be feminism. It can be something as simple as women who believe that 50-50 should not be necessary. Then why do you make money? Most women make money to prove to themselves that they can be independent, while men make money to pay their bills and to take care of their family. And if women are allowed to work now, why is 50-50 in question? You're doing it.
Did you
If we
say
have
women
a
are
family
allowed to work?
together, we're doing it to grow our family.
Did you just say women,
What?
if women are allowed to work? I'm not coming to with them.
No, I said when women are now allowed to work. So the objective, I'm assuming, if you're if women were arguing and fighting back then to get a job to prove to themselves that they can be independent of a man, that was the first problem. That was the first problem. If they weren't doing it to try to help bring food on the table, help take care of the household financially, help in that manner so that it pulls some of the weight off of the man and he can do other things like protect the home, upkeep the home externally, making sure that the home is well rounded. If her objective was not to financially help upkeep the home, then then that makes the situation of why women went out to work selfish. They
Does it
did it
why
for
does it
their
have to
own
be
selfish
either or?
reasons.
Why can't it be both? So I am assuming back then, because the family unit was so strong, that I'm sure that men did benefit, the household did benefit from women going to work. However, a woman can still benefit from self-development, you know. And so it can be twofold.
Correct.
It does not have to be either or. And
Well, and I agree with that. And I agree with that point. So then why would 50-50 be
what
an
I was
argument
saying
then?
is I believe, based on the way that society is right now, people want their cake and to eat it too.
Hmm.
But
Which
it
is messed up.
happens. So if we look
Right.
at
But that doesn't make it
today's
okay.
woman, and of course, I'm being careful not to really generalize. However, I'll just say a lot of women, some women. If we look at some women today, um, you're asking me to fall into a traditional role, but then you can't take care of everything. What I'm saying is, based on the type of women that we have now, I just believe that you're going to run into some issues. And I still stand on that. I still stand.
Right. Right. Okay. So here, let me put
Okay.
something else in perspective for you. All right. What is
An
an
independent
independent person?
person
What is it?
is a person
Yeah.
that's
Go
able
ahead. What's an
to
independent person?
survive void of another individual. But none of us are truly independent if we
Okay.
look at that. And the problem
Well,
is we have to be interdependent. That's what makes a family unit work. That's what makes a relationship work. I'm interdependent. So
what is
I understand within
interdependent? What is
myself
that? What
that
is the difference?
there's certain things that I can do, I can take care of. However, I am dependent on you for certain things. Your company, if you're dating, I'm interdependent on you for your company, maybe your advice. There are things that we give and take from one another. And so understanding that, like you, I think independence in a lot of ways has really scarred us. So,
of course, because here's the deal. Independence has scarred particularly the Black community.
Thank you for being here and listening. Subscribe to the vibes, send your support or oppositions in. I'm just here to listen in. Podcast here for the repositioning, reclaiming Black entertainment, exhibitioning, transitioning to more informative news, mentioning celebs, who's sleeping with who's is not what we soliciting. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to the episode of I'm Just Here to Listen podcast. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for more updates. To catch the full episode, exclusive content, short films, and documentaries, subscribe to our Patreon by scanning the link in this video. We appreciate your support and see you on part 2.